Welcome back to another episode of I Wish They Knew, a show where we share big ideas that deserve more attention in about the time it takes to enjoy a cup of coffee. I'm Joe Hirsch. Today's wish comes from Adam Kahane. Adam is the co-founder of Reos Partners, a global social impact company that helps people move forward together on their most important and intractable issues. Over his long career, Adam has done exactly that in over 50 countries around the world, with everybody from executives and politicians to generals and guerrillas, civil servants and trade unionists, community activists, UN officials, even the occasional clergy members and artists. I'll leave it to you, or maybe even Adam at the end, to tell us which of those groups has the most intractable problems. He's also the author of 6 books and has been named a Schwab Foundation Social Innovation Thought Leader of the Year at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Adam, it's a pleasure to welcome you to the show.
Thank you, Joe.
So what do you wish more people knew?
Well, I wish more people knew that it is possible to work with people you don't agree with or like or trust. You can choose not to, and it's not necessarily easy or straightforward or guaranteed, but it can be done.
So we often find ourselves having to work with the people that we don't like very much, agree with very much, or trust even at all. And we don't get to pick our partners, as you like to say, but that doesn't mean we can't actually make progress. But you come at the problem of collaboration a little bit differently. And I'm curious if you can share your view of this. And it's something you talk about in now what is the second edition of Collaborating with the Enemy, which is a great book. How are we getting collaboration wrong, and how might we go about it a little differently?
Well, I think there's 2 big ways we're getting it wrong. Somehow we've come to believe that if we don't agree with and like and trust people, that we can't work with them. And we're this belief that we have to agree on what the problem is and what the solution is and what the plan is and who's going to do what. We have to have the same values. And it would be nice if all those things were true, or if we did agree about all of those things, but often we don't. And somehow we've come to believe that if those things aren't true, we can't collaborate. And I don't think that's the case. So that's one thing that I think we're getting wrong. And relatedly, the other thing I think we're getting wrong is we have this idea that collaboration requires us all to be on the same team and put our own interests aside and agree on all those things up front. And then everybody will just do what they're supposed to do. And that is one way to collaborate, but it doesn't work when the situation is conflictual and complex. So the other thing I think we're getting wrong is we're raising the bar too high, and collaborating across difference is always difficult, and we're making it impossible when we set these kind of preconditions.
Yeah, these expectations that just might be too high for any collaboration to possibly succeed on.
Sometimes we can meet those conditions, but often we can't. And so I think it's a misunderstanding that we have to meet these conditions to be able to work together.
And you make that distinction really clear in the book, the difference between conventional collaboration and what you call stretch collaboration. Can you help us understand the difference between those two on a deeper level?
This is one of the biggest changes in the rewrite of the book with the second edition. It wasn't a little tweak. I think my publisher maybe thought I would update a few sentences, but it actually ended up being a major rewrite. And this is the most consequential rewrite. I said in the first edition that this conventional collaboration is becoming obsolete, and I think that's completely wrong. Conventional collaboration is simple teamwork, like an orchestra or a surgical team or a sports team. We're all on the same side. We all have the same objectives. We leave our individual interests at the door. We subordinate our own interests to the collaboration. And that's fine, and it works a lot of the time. But as you said, when complexity is high and or conflict is high, that way of collaborating, that conventional way of collaborating, does not work and cannot work. And so what's required is to stretch way beyond that conventional and comfortable way of collaborating. And that's what I'm calling stretch collaboration.
When we talk about collaboration occurring in situations that are highly complex or highly conflictual, Can you locate the problem of collaboration here for us?
Actually, I've come to understand that the kind of situation that calls for stretch collaboration is very common. It's where complexity is high, just means we don't know what'll work before we start. We have to feel our way forward. It's not a machine that we do this and we know what we'll get. And conflict being high just means that there are real differences that aren't going to be resolved or not easily resolved. And in fact, there's a very famous marriage researcher, John Gottman, who who's recorded tens of thousands of hours of married couples, and he has this extraordinary statistic that 69% of marital disagreements involve issues that can't be resolved. They're personality differences or life differences in lifestyle needs. So, and he says, which marriages endure? The ones where you're able to talk about or ignore or joke about those differences, but you don't solve them. So, no, I think that what I'm calling stretch collaboration applies at home, in community, in certain circumstances at work, and often geopolitically.
So there are those three stretches that you talk about in the book, and I'm wondering if you can take us through those here. What
Yeah.
are those three practices?
Well, the first stretch is to embrace conflict as well as connection, to recognize, yes, we have some things in common. And at the same time, we have things that are different, which may stay different forever. So rather than pretend we don't have a conflict or a difference, let's embrace it and acknowledge it and find a way to work together, even though there are some things that we do not agree on and may never agree on. So that's the first stretch, embrace conflict as well as connection.
And so once we make peace with the fact that there are things that we're not going to agree on, how do we actually make progress on that once we have that acknowledgement?
Well, problems that are conflictual and or complex, we're probably not going to be able to agree at the beginning or before we start. What's the problem? What's the solution? What's the plan? Who's going to do what? Either we just don't see eye to eye enough to reach that agreement, or it's just not possible to know because it's a complex issue that we're just going to have to see what works. So the second stretch is experiment our way forward. We try stuff out. We keep doing what works. We don't keep doing what doesn't work, and we feel our way forward. There's this amazing, famous line that Deng Xiaoping used to describe the economic reform in China. He said, "We're crossing the river feeling for stones." I just didn't expect that to be the image from the head of the Chinese Communist Party, but that image that we know where we're trying to get to, but we don't. We're just going to have to take it one step at a time and feel our way forward.
Yeah. And so making sort of small bets on where this conversation, where this exchange can lead us to next.
Well, or what to do next. We think the next thing is to do X. We may even agree that okay, we're going to try this, but we don't know if it's going to work. So you take the step and you see, did that work? If so, let's keep going. If not, let's try something else. So
Mhm.
that's what I mean by the second stretch, experimenting a way forward.
Right. So having the comfort to try things and the clarity to know when you need to try something different.
Yes, which may be easy, but in some cultures, this is a real no-no. You're not allowed to start if you don't know where you're going to end up. You're not allowed to make mistakes. You're not allowed to change your mind. And those are a real impediment to addressing these circumstances that require stretch collaboration.
Mm. So what's the third stretch?
The third stretch uh, says, I'm not going to be able to control what other people do. This idea that um, we're going to figure out the answer and then you're going to do what I want you to do. This almost never works in situations with high complexity and or high conflict. In situations where the collaborators are not willing to subordinate themselves to the collaboration. So the alternative to telling other people what to do is to focus on what are you yourself doing that is contributing to things being the way they are, and how can you change the way things are by changing what you yourself are doing. So the third stretch is step into the game, or I guess a bit more accurately, recognize the role you're playing in the problem and start acting there, because it's usually a big waste of time to focus your attention on what other people ought to be doing.
Yeah. So you can't force others to change, but you can look at yourself and change things about yourself.
Yes, it's really a basic point, but it's a point that many people find extremely difficult. It takes them hours, if not months, to realize that they're probably not going to be able to change other people. Literally, the only thing they have control over is what they themselves are going to do. So why don't you figure out what you can do, and do it?
Yeah. So if you make yourself part of the problem, then you can also be part of the solution.
It's the only way to be part of the solution,
Mm.
except from the outside by force.
Mm-hmm. You said earlier in our conversation that collaboration isn't always the right outcome that we should be pursuing. Can you tell us more about that?
When you think about it, it's pretty obvious that I can't collaborate with everybody on everything. It's literally impossible. And collaborating is not my only option. Actually, I have four options. If things are not the way that I want them to be, I can try to force them to be the way I want them to be, regardless of what other people want. I just do what I want. People may not like it, but sometimes I can do it. Sometimes it's legal and moral. Just do what I want to do.
Impose your will.
If I can't change things, I can adapt to things the way they are. Again, not at all unusual. Probably most of the time we're adapting to things we can't affect. Thirdly, I can exit, get a divorce, emigrate, quit my job, tune out. And the fourth option is I can try to work with others to change the situation. And people tell me it's a huge relief when they realize they can't and don't have to collaborate with everybody on everything. But there are situations where there's no way for me to get where I want to go except by collaborating with others, including sometimes with people I don't agree with or like or trust. And that's what this book is about.
Yeah, the only way out is through.
Yeah.
Mm. Well, the book is excellent and it'll help stretch your thinking, collaborating with the enemy. And it has helped me stretch some of the ways that I think about this topic. And I think it will for you as well. Adam Kahane, thanks for sharing your wish with us today.
Thanks, Joe.